Your tomato plant is dying right now. The leaves have turned the color of old paper. The stems sag toward the ground. And every fiber in your body is telling you to grab the shovel and pull it out. Don't. Because soil scientists have found something that changes everything. In almost every case. That plant isn't dying. It's starving. Running out of one or two nutrients, the soil simply can't give it anymore. And here's the part that will surprise you. Those nutrients are already in your kitchen. Right now, sitting in your trash can. Today, I'm sharing 5 fertilizers that cost absolutely nothing. Methods Amish and Mennonite farmers have used for generations. Methods the fertilizer industry has quietly buried. For one simple reason. There's no profit in a banana peel. So before you reach for that shovel, stick around. Your dying plant might just need a second chance. Here's a question worth asking before that next onion skin hits the trash. Which part of the onion holds more potassium, the white bulb you toss into your soup, or the dry, papery brown skin you peel off and throw away? The answer surprises almost everyone. It's the skin. Those outer layers, the ones treated as garbage in nearly every kitchen on Earth, carry one of the most concentrated doses of potassium, calcium, magnesium, and iron found anywhere in the produce aisle. They also carry a compound called quercetin, the same compound that makes red wine, apples, and blueberries. Good for your heart. Inside a plant, quercetin does similar protective work. It shields leaves from harsh summer sun. It slows the spread of fungal infection. It steadies the plant's internal chemistry when a heat wave or a cold snap rolls through. Now here's where most gardeners make the wrong turn. They hear about onion peels, and they imagine digging the skins straight into the soil, expecting them to break down and feed the roots. That method works, but it takes weeks. The nutrients stay locked inside the dry fibers, while the plant above keeps wilting. By the time the skins decompose, the plant is already gone. The real trick isn't soil, it's water. Think of it like a tea bag releasing color and flavor into a hot cup. An onion skin works the exact same way, releasing its minerals into a jar of water. The process takes just 24 to 48 hours at room temperature. Here's the entire setup. A handful of dry onion skins, a quart jar, cool water straight from the tap. That's it. Within a day, the water darkens into the color of weak tea. By the second day, it deepens into rich amber. That color isn't just pretty. It's potassium, magnesium, calcium, and quercetin leaving the plant tissue and dissolving directly into the liquid. Already in a form, your plant's roots can absorb immediately. No composting. No waiting. No breaking down. Pour this amber liquid at the base of a yellowing tomato plant, or around a pepper that stops setting fruit. And within days, the stems thicken. New leaves come in a deeper green. Flower production picks back up within a week. And here's a detail most gardening books leave out entirely. The plant's own immune system starts fighting harder. Quercetin helps switch that immunity on. Stem rot slows down. Seedling wildfaudes. The plants that would have been pulled out by the weekend, they're still standing at the end of the season. So here's the real reason this disappeared from mainstream gardening advice. No fertilizer company can build a business around onion peel tea. There's no way to package it. No patent to file. No premium shelf space to sell. But onion peel tea only feeds the plant directly. The next method feeds something far more important. Billions of invisible workers living in the top inch of your garden bed, and that changes everything about how plants actually grow. What if the cloudy water you pour down the drain every evening, the leftover rinse from washing a pot of uncooked rice, turned out to be one of the most powerful soil treatments ever studied under a microscope? It sounds like an exaggeration. It isn't. Fresh rice water carries starches, vitamins, and small amounts of iron and zinc, straight from the pot. It's already mildly useful to the garden. But the real transformation begins a few days later. After that, Water sits at room temperature in a covered jar. The liquid takes on a faintly sour smell, like the first hint of sourdough starter, and most people, smelling that, would pour it straight down the drain. Doing so would be throwing away the most valuable part. That sour smell is the signature of a microbial bloom. Lactic acid bacteria and wild yeasts have moved in and taken over the liquid. And this is where the work of a Japanese agricultural scientist named Dr. Teruo Higa becomes important. In the 1980s, Dr. Higa, a professor at the University of the Ryukyus, introduced the concept of effective microorganisms, often shortened to EM. His research showed that certain beneficial microbes added to depleted soil could bring it back to life in a matter of weeks. EM formulas are now used on farms in more than 150 countries. And the microbes at the heart of those formulas, the same ones that appear naturally in fermented rice water, for free. So here's what actually happens underground when this liquid hits your garden bed. The bacteria and yeasts in the water meet the microbes already living around your plant's roots. The starches and sugars act as a feast. The soil microbiome wakes up, multiplies, and gets to work. Within a single week, the population of beneficial microbes around a treated plant can triple. 1 teaspoon of healthy soil after this treatment can hold more than 1 billion living organisms, more than the population of North America, packed into something smaller than a coffee bean. This is the moment the whole idea clicks for most gardeners. Rice water doesn't feed the plant. It builds the plant's support system. It's the difference between handing someone a single meal and handing them a working kitchen. A meal runs out. A kitchen keeps producing. Now, the mistake nearly every first-time user makes. They pour it on fresh, straight from rinsing the rice. Fresh rice water does something, but very little. Fermented rice water, 3 to 5 days old, is an entirely different tool. The smell is your signal. No sour tang yet, it's not ready. One more rule matters here. Dilution. Mix fermented rice water with plain water at about 1 part rice water to 10 parts water before it ever touches the soil. Undiluted. The acidity can irritate tender roots, especially in seedlings. Diluted correctly, it's gentle enough to apply weekly, all season long. Rice water wakes the soil up, but a plant collapsing today doesn't have time to wait for the soil to rebuild itself. That plant needs food it can drink before the sun sets, which is exactly why the next method exists. Every refrigerator in America has one. The forgotten tomato at the bottom of the crisper drawer, the head of lettuce that wilted before anyone got around to using it, the bruised cucumber pushed to the back of the shelf. For most households, these scraps end up in the trash. Or, at best, in a compost bin that won't produce usable material for another 6 months. But for a gardener who knows the method, those same scraps are the fastest acting nitrogen source you can make at home. The science behind this dates back to the 1840s, to a German chemist named Justus von Liebig, one of the founding fathers of modern agriculture. Liebig proved something that changed the way farmers thought about soil. Plant growth, he showed, isn't determined by the nutrients a plant has plenty of clothes. It's determined by the one nutrient the plant has the least of. This became known as the law of the minimum. Picture a wooden barrel with staves of different heights. The water inside only rises as high as the shortest stave. Doesn't matter how tall the rest are. One short stave caps the whole barrel. Plants work exactly the same way. Generous potassium, plenty of phosphorus, but not quite enough nitrogen. Growth stops at the nitrogen line, no matter how rich the rest of the soil might be. And nitrogen, in nearly every American backyard garden, is the single most common missing stave. Green kitchen scraps carry what soil scientists call a low carbon-to-nitrogen ratio. In plain language, they're packed with nitrogen compared to their fiber content. Overripe tomatoes, soft peppers, wilted spinach, bruised kale, old cucumbers, all of them. Nitrogen in disguise. Here's the method. Crush those scraps into a 5-gallon bucket. Cover with water. Weigh it down with a plate to keep everything submerged. Let it ferment for about 2 weeks. Bacteria in the water break the plant cells apart. The nitrogen locked inside gets released and pulled into the liquid. Scientists call this nitrogen mineralization. And in water, it happens far faster than it ever would in a compost pile. The finished liquid isn't pretty. It's dark, cloudy, and strong-smelling. But that smell is the proof it's ready. Earthy, pungent, unmistakable. Diluted at 1 part scrap liquid to 30 parts fresh water. This digestate goes straight onto the soil at the base of the plant. Within 4 to 6 days, the change is visible. Pâle. Tired leaves deepen to full shades of green. New shoots push out where none were forming before. Stems thicken near the base. A plant that looked finished on Monday is setting new flowers by Saturday. Now, the mistake that burns more gardens every summer than any other HNU, excited by the results. Many gardeners spray this liquid directly onto the leaves, or pour it on undiluted. Both are a disaster. Strong enough to scorch leaves on contact. Undiluted. It can burn root hairs beyond recovery. This method belongs at the soil, at the correct dilution, applied to the root zone, never the leaves. Never at full strength. Here's a quiet truth most home gardeners never realize. The average American kitchen produces more nitrogen in a single week than a small vegetable garden actually needs in a month. The nutrients aren't scarce. They're simply being routed to the landfill instead of the garden bed. But nitrogen only solves the hunger problem. Most collapsing plants aren't missing just one nutrient, they're missing 5 or 6 at once, in different amounts, all at the same time. For that kind of rescue, one ingredient isn't enough. The garden needs a full recipe. If every struggling plant has its own unique combination of deficiencies, what if there were one single mixture, built entirely from items most households throw away before breakfast, that covered almost all of them at once? That mixture exists. It comes together like a recipe, with each ingredient doing a specific job, and understanding what each one actually does is the difference between a half-working tonic and a tonic that can save a plant overnight. Start with 3 familiar items pulled right off the breakfast table. Banana peels provide potassium, the mineral that drives flowering, fruiting, and a plant's ability to move water through its cells. A tomato short on potassium produces small, watery fruits with skins that split as they ripen. Eggshells, finely crushed, provide calcium carbonate, the building block of cell walls. Calcium deficiency is behind one of the most frustrating sights in any tomato garden, that black, sunken patch at the bottom of an otherwise beautiful fruit. Blossom end rot. And used coffee grounds, the kind left in your filter basket after brewing. Add a slow release of nitrogen and improve the soil's physical texture. Now here's a point where most gardening advice online is simply wrong. For decades, gardeners have been told, coffee grounds make soil more acidic. That's a half-truth stretched into a full myth. Fresh, unbrewed coffee grounds are indeed acidic, but used grounds the kind from your coffee maker or French press sit nearly neutral. University soil labs measure them between 5 and 6, 8 on the pH scale, almost exactly where most vegetable gardens want to be. Used grounds won't dramatically acidify your soil. What they will do is add organic matter, feed earthworms, improve drainage, and release nitrogen slowly over several weeks. 2 more ingredients take this recipe from good to exceptional. The first is Epsom salt, technically magnesium sulfate. Magnesium sits at the exact center of every chlorophyll molecule in every green leaf on Earth. No magnesium, no chlorophyll, no photosynthesis. When magnesium runs low, leaves yellow between the veins, while the veins themselves stay green. A pattern called interveinal chlorosis 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt dissolved into the brew delivers a direct magnesium boost that can reverse this within days. But here's a critical caveat. Yellowing leaves have many causes. Nitrogen deficiency yellows the older leaves first. Iron deficiency yellows the youngest leaves. Overwatering and root rot can yellow the whole plant. Epsom salt cures magnesium deficiency. Specifically, get the diagnosis right, and the transformation is dramatic. Get it wrong, and adding more Epsom salt again and again can actually throw your soil's balance off. The lesson: diagnose before you treat. The second specialty ingredient is blackstrap molasses. Not regular table molasses. Blackstrap the dark, almost bitter version from the final boiling of sugarcane. It's rich in iron and trace minerals. But its real role here is something almost no gardening website explains correctly. Molasses is food for microbes. A tablespoon stirred into the brew is like ringing a dinner bell for every beneficial bacterium in that liquid. Their populations multiply within hours. Those hyperactive microbes then break down the banana peels, eggshells, and coffee grounds far faster than the ingredients would decompose on their own. A brew without molasses takes 3 weeks to be useful. A brew with molasses can be ready in 3 days. Banana peels, crushed eggshells, used coffee grounds, Epsom salt, and blackstrap molasses all into about 1 gallon of warm water, steeped for 3 to 5 days in a covered bucket. The result is a full-spectrum tonic, carrying potassium, calcium, nitrogen, magnesium, iron, trace minerals, and a live culture of working bacteria, all in one pour. The most common mistake: skipping the molasses. Without that microbial catalyst, the peels and shells release their nutrients slowly, week after week. With it, the release happens in days. That single tablespoon is the difference between a slow-drip fertilizer and an instant rescue. This recipe covers the modern kitchen, but there's one more method, older than any of these ingredients, older than coffee and bananas in American grocery stores, older than most of the houses in any town where this video is playing right now. Before 1913, synthetic fertilizer didn't exist. Every farm on Earth, from Iowa to Ireland to the foothills of India, ran on the same 2 inputs: animal manure and compost. Then a German chemist named Fritz Haber, along with an engineer named Karl Bosch, invented a process that pulls nitrogen out of thin air and turns it into ammonia. That invention, now called the Haber-Bosch process, is often credited with feeding half the human population alive today. It's also, quietly, the process that stripped the life out of cropland across most of the industrialized world over the following 100 years. That's the trade-off almost no gardening book ever explains. Synthetic nitrogen fed billions of people. It also taught farmers to feed the plant while starving the soil. The results are visible from space now. Dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico. Collapsed soil structure across the Great Plains. A slow, grinding loss of the microbial life that keeps a garden truly alive. But for a home gardener, the old method still works. And for rescuing a dying plant in your own backyard, it still outperforms the synthetic version. This method is called manure tea among old-time farmers in the Appalachian Hills and the Pennsylvania countryside. They have another name for it: the giant tea bag. The setup is as simple as anything on this list: a shovel full of aged, dried manure chicken, chow, or rabbit. Never fresh goes into a porous sack. An old cotton pillowcase works. So does a burlap feed bag or a mesh laundry bag. Tie it shut at the top. Drop it into a 5-gallon bucket of water. Over the next 3 to 5 days, the water slowly extracts the soluble nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and a long list of trace minerals, leaving the solid matter safely inside the sack, where it won't burn the garden or carry weed seeds into your beds. Each kind of manure brings a different profile. And choosing the right one matters more than most people realize. Aged chicken manure carries the highest levels of nitrogen and phosphorus of the three, making it the most powerful growth stimulant. A single cup of properly diluted chicken manure tea can push a tired tomato plant back into heavy flowering within a week. Cow manure is more balanced, lower in nitrogen, but exceptional for building the long-term structure of your soil and feeding the humus layer beneath the topsoil. And rabbit manure is the quiet secret of experienced gardeners. It's the only common manure that can go on a garden raw, without burning roots, because its nitrogen is already in a mild form. Rabbit tea is the gentlest option, and the safest for young seedlings. Now, here's the mistake that kills more manure tea gardens than any other single factor. Using fresh manure. Fresh droppings from any animal carry too much ammonia. They also carry weed seeds and pathogens from whatever that animal was eating that week. A single bucket of fresh manure, applied too generously, can scorch an entire row of seedlings within 48 hours. The manure must be aged ideally 6 months to a year before it ever goes into the bag. There are no shortcuts on this step. Once the tea is brewed, dilution becomes the next critical decision. The finished liquid should be diluted down to the color of weak iced tea. Roughly 1 part tea to 10 parts clean water, before a single drop touches the garden. That ratio isn't a guess. It's the line between a tonic that heals and a tonic that burns, applied at the right strength. A single cup poured at the root zone of a tomato plant can keep that plant thriving for a full week, sometimes longer. One more detail old-time farmers swear by, and modern soil science now backs up. Manure tea works best applied in the cool hours early morning, or the last hour before sunset. In the heat of midday, much of the nitrogen evaporates before the roots can absorb it. In the cool of evening, the soil holds on to the nutrients, and the plant drinks at its own pace. Overnight, the final result is a fertilizer that combines every essential nutrient a plant needs with the living microbes that help it actually use those nutrients. The full ecosystem in a single bucket, and it costs nothing beyond what the animals have already provided. For free. Remember that tomato plant from the start of this video, the one with leaves like old paper, stems sagging toward the ground. It's not in the compost heap. It's standing tall, leaves deep green, new flowers opening in the morning sun, all because someone paused. Before reaching for the shovel, onion peel elixir, fermented rice water, vegetable scrap digestate, the kitchen cocktail, aged manure tea, 5 fertilizers, zero cost, already sitting in your kitchen, your garden, your shed. The thing you've been calling trash is exactly what your garden has been begging for. So tell me, which one are you trying first? Drop it in the comments below. And if you know someone who's lost more plants than they've saved, send them this video. Give their garden a second chance too. Subscribe, hit that bell, and keep the old knowledge alive. Happy gardening.